Hey guys, today we are looking at a comparison between a traditional WordPress site and a static WordPress site. So, a traditional WordPress site, by my definition, is one that is on a server that has PHP, MySQL, and Apache installed, where a static site is you can turn the WordPress site into a bunch of HTML files, and you do not have any of the other things installed on a server, just kind of out there on the web. So let's go ahead and take a look. There's three things that you need for your WordPress server. You need PHP, MySQL, and Apache Web Server. So PHP will do the background code that is sort of the back end of WordPress. MySQL has all of the data in its database that stores all of your text and your HTML code and stuff like that that you're displaying on your pages. And you have the Apache Web Server, which actually allows you to take HTTP requests um, going through port 80 and HTTPS and stuff. So let's take a look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of this. So when you have WordPress, if you've ever used WordPress, it's super dynamic and interactive. You can have any kind of functionality that you want. When you want to make a new post or something like that, it updates instantly so your audience can see your post as soon as you post it and hit publish. The most or the best thing about WordPress is the awesome plugins. You can basically make anything happen with plugins. And this includes any kind of website you want, whether you need a forum, a social media site, a gallery, a store for e-commerce, anything, there's a plugin that will allow you to do that. And also another very powerful thing about WordPress is the fact that you can have user accounts for your WordPress. So if you need someone to sign up for a store, or if you need someone to sign in to contribute to your forum or something like that, you are able to do that and you can have other people from your audience or whatever interact in your community. However, there are some disadvantages to that, especially for user accounts. The biggest concern is security. So if you have a username and password, now you have to protect that username and password. And also one of the things is you don't only have to protect your username and passwords, but you actually have to protect your MySQL database because your MySQL database is also going to be possibly hacked. And then if they hack your database, they can change anything they want. They can change your posts, they can change your username and password for your admin account, for your users, anything. They kind of get anything if they get into that MySQL database. So it is also slower than static sites. So if you have a bunch of users and your website can't handle it, a static site's probably best. But this is caused because with WordPress you need PHP, MySQL, and Apache, and every single time you click on a link somewhere, your WordPress site is going back to your database, fetching the data, and then displaying that data back onto your screen. So every single time there's even one click, it's doing a lot of different transactions. And that takes up more processing power, which will also slow down your site. And the next point is I have relies on services, which actually might cause more downtime. Now, this is not a huge thing to worry about, but you do have to worry about PHP, MySQL, and Apache all functioning. So these are normally very stable programs. I've had some cases where MySQL was down, just something happened, I needed to reboot it, but it did out of nowhere just kind of stopped working, and so my website was completely down. Also, another disadvantage is the cost is a little bit higher. If you have barely any traffic, you can get by with about $5 a month. But if you have a lot of users, it's hard to scale up because the more you have to scale up, the more money and resources you need to use for your WordPress server. Hopefully, at that point, you're making more money though, too. So, looking at a static WordPress site, how do we do that? So, if we have a traditional WordPress with everything on a server, PHP and everything, what we can do is we can take the content that we already have and we can output it and we can use plugins. One of the amazing things about WordPress is we can use plugins to output our site as HTML. And so I listed these, I'll put them in the description below, and I'll be showing how to use these in a different video. This is more of just a comparison video, so I'll get to that later, but subscribe if you would like to see something like that, and let me know in the comments below as well. But for a static WordPress site, so everything's outputted to the formatting, the visual is going to be the same. And instead of needing PHP, MySQL, and Apache, you only need a web browser. Because web browsers already support CSS HTML and JavaScript, and those are the only things that are on a static WordPress site. So you don't need anything behind the scenes to be functioning. You don't no longer have to rely on those services. You can upload this to a Google Cloud bucket or a Amazon Web Services bucket, and you can instantly have this available, and you don't have to really worry about downtime because if you're on a cloud provider, they should be up a large majority of the time. So the advantages of a static WordPress site, so you're outputting your content into static HTML files, it's going to be a lot faster because it no longer has to talk with the database, no longer has to render the PHP code. It literally just downloads the file and displays in your browser. It's also more secure because there's no username and password, there's no MySQL database that's taking username and passwords, and because you don't have the username and password and the database, you no longer need to worry about either of them being hacked. So another advantage of this is very simple functionality. So if you have anything on your page, your pages are going to look exactly the same. It's in the background that's what's actually not going to happen. So if you have a great looking website and you don't need much use out of it, it's going to have very simple functionality. People can click on buttons, they can get to different pages. Everything will work just fine displaying things wise and within the browser. It's just that behind the scenes stuff, that back end code that won't be running. And when you're updating, so make offline changes, then update. So with normal WordPress, you have to basically update it live if you have, and there's ways around it, you don't have to, but for the most part, you're updating your live product if you want to make some changes. And so if you have a lot of people checking out your site, someone's going to see that you're making changes live, and it's going to look a little unprofessional. Where if you have a static WordPress site, you can have WordPress hosted on a computer or virtual machine or something locally so that the internet cannot see it. And then you can make all of your changes, and then you output another round of static HTML code from your WordPress site. And then you just upload it to your new site, and it updates everything, and now you don't have little changes bit by bit. You have all the changes you want, and then it just gets uploaded to the cloud, and now your email or now your website has changed. Some disadvantages of this is I kind of have the plugins and dynamic WordPress features are kind of the same, where you don't get to use plugins because plugins run on the PHP code, and they won't work because there's no PHP service running in the background. So a lot of different features won't work. You won't be able to have forums. You won't be able to have emails sent from your site for email confirmations or anything like that because there's no backend service to do that. And then also another advantage, like I was telling you, is you have a little bit of a couple more steps. You do have to host your own WordPress locally and then output it to the cloud. And so there's a couple more steps involved other than just logging onto your website in the cloud and then updating it right there. You have to export your new code and then upload it to your website. So which one would you need? So a lot of use cases are basically if you need user accounts, you're going to be using traditional. If you have e-commerce as well, if this is your only platform for you to engage your customers, you're also going to need a traditional one because you need to hear feedback from them and stuff like that, and a static site cannot really do that. And if you can afford to spend a little bit, if this is a serious business that you have and you really want the cool functionality and the automatic email setup, if you can spend a lot and it means a lot to you, it's normally worth having the full functionality of WordPress, minus the security aspect of it. But you can buy plugins and stuff to make your website a little bit more secure and whatnot. So if you can afford it, you can mitigate all the risks of having a traditional server, I guess, for WordPress. If you are looking, you can use static if you're just looking to post content. So if you have a blog and you don't really care who reads it, you just want to put it out there, or if you have photos from your gallery or whatnot, and you just want to put content out there, you really just need a static WordPress site. It will be a lot faster when people go to it and load. You don't have to worry about how many users are going to your site because it scales a lot easier than a traditional WordPress site. So if you have 1,000 users, it's no problem. Where if you have a traditional site with 1,000 users going all at once, you might need to upgrade your server. And another benefit of the static is you don't have to worry about being hacked. So if you don't like worrying about being hacked, or that's one less thing that you can worry about, I would recommend going to a static website. It is you do have to constantly update plugins and themes and stuff like that. If there's anything that's outdated, you could be increasing your chances of getting hacked. So that is kind of a benefit, is if you want to be a little less worry-free and you don't need the functionality of a traditional WordPress site, I would recommend going with a static site. And then if you have a very small budget or almost no budget at all, cloud storage is extremely cheap. If all you need to do is just update your code every once in a while, update your website. Um, Storage costs in the cloud are very cheap. They charge you a couple cents per gigabyte unless you have lots of photos for your WordPress site. They probably won't even bother charging you because you'll be using no more than 100 megabytes, and at 4 cents a gigabyte, that's not even a penny per month. So those are just kind of some of the benefits, advantages, disadvantages, which one you should kind of use. If you're looking for just something to display your content, it's definitely worth it to go the static side. It's a lot less troublesome. But if you really need that customer engagement, I would definitely recommend using a traditional WordPress site. So just thought I would help you guys out there. I hope this video was helpful. And if you guys can subscribe, I will be making some more tutorials on exactly how to create a static website and whatnot. So thanks everyone.